Hey y'all, in this video we're going to do a little bit of a refresher on bitmap tracing and node editing with an end goal towards creating this pirate for V-carving or epoxy inlay. More on that in future videos. For right now, what we want to do is get a hold of this pirate pattern. Now, I perused the internet looking for patterns that I could use that were either licensable or royalty free. And I came upon this pirate here, and there is a black and white outline clip art as well as a color version of the same image. And as it turns out, they are both public domain, which is perfect for our purposes. Public domain means they're available for free for personal and commercial use. And I'll put links to all of these images down in the description box of this video. Now you'll notice that this is on a web page called FreeSVG. And you'll notice that you can come over here and you can download an SVG. I'm going to caution against doing that with this particular image, and I'll show you why in just a minute. All I did was go over to the outline clip art, right click, and open the image in a new tab. And that brought up this photo, which I downloaded. And I did the same thing over here on the color image. And that's the image that I have loaded right here. So we can see it's a pretty decent image. This black and white clip art, this one here, is what I'm going to use to bitmap trace. Now, why did I decide to do a bitmap trace? Well, let me go into another session of Aspire, and I'll show you. This is the bitmap that I downloaded online. It has not been resized, it's not been scaled or changed at all. Let me go ahead and turn off this bitmap layer, and I'm going to show you the SVG file as it downloaded. Here is the SVG file. This is basically unusable. Not all SVG files are created equally. An SVG file made for a graphics program such as CorelDRAW or Inkscape is meant to be used as an online graphic. The image, the SVG file itself, has all of the data within it that tells that program for instance, the width of this outline here. It tells the program that this portion of his shirt overlaps his arm down here. So crossovers, intersections, and overlaps like this don't really matter because the SVG program understands that this portion of his shirt covers his arm. So this layer sits atop of this layer. It also tells the program the width of this edge of his sword. If we go back to the photograph, we can see how wide that is. That information is not actually a part of the drawing. It's within the information within the SVG file that the graphics program reads. Remember, a vector for our purposes does not have a width. It does not have weight. It is simply a start point, an end point, a direction, and a length. So this is unusable for our purposes. That's why I did not use the SVG file. That's why I went with tracing a bitmap. The reason I mentioned this has been imported and not scaled up, not resized at all, is because it's been my experience that I get a much better bitmap tracing if I import the bitmap, then trace it at that size. The pixels are smaller and the entire drawing looks smoother. It's not as jagged or rough as it would be if I went ahead and scaled it up to the size that I needed. So now what we're going to need to do is go in, take a look at it, and see if there are some elements that we'll have to watch out for. Already I can see that we have a little white gap down here that really serves no purpose, so I'm going to watch out for that when I trace the bitmap. Let's go ahead and see. I don't see any other really small noise or anything within this image. So let's go ahead with it selected, go over here to Trace Bitmap. Now, Vectric software, be it Cut2D, VCarve, or Aspire, a lot of the forms will remember your last setting, and this is one of them. It is a black and white image, obviously, and I'm going to leave the threshold at the center. The last bitmap I traced, I went for a real tight fit along the edges of the image here in my corner fit, and I'm going to leave it there just to see what I get. The noise filter. I did a video on the Bitmap Trace noise filter fading and corner fit previously, and if you missed that video, I'll put a link up here in a card right about now. Basically put, the noise filter is a level that you set. Right now this is set at 5, and that means any areas out here that are less than 5 pixels wide or high will be ignored. They will not be included in the tracing. The fading is how light or dark the bitmap is while you're doing any work with it, and that can be adjusted later on. I'm going to leave it at 52% and just see what I get. So without making any adjustments over here, I'm going to click preview. Then I'm going to come in and take a look at what I have. And as I expected, that little spot here is traced, although I don't know why. We have some smaller areas out in here. Those are fine, but if you'll notice, we have some areas here that did not get traced. These are so small, I doubt that they would survive the carving process. These would probably get carved away anyway, so I'm not really concerned about them. It's looking pretty good. It's a little bit faceted, but I'll show you how to fix that. The skull and crossbones is ridiculous, so we'll replace that with a completely different vector, or series of vectors. I'm going to go ahead and accept this because I can work with it. So, I have already previewed. I'll accept this. I'll click apply. And that's the tracing I'm going to use. So, we'll close this. Then I'm going to immediately turn off the bitmap layer because I don't need it right at this moment. Okay, now I want to resize this entire image. So I'll select everything, come over here to set selected object size, and my widest measurement is my width in X. My piece of material is 18 inches high in Y and 18 inches wide in X, so I'm going to go for 16 inches width in X. Link XY is checked. It's already calculated my height in Y, and I'll apply. And there we have our pirate. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and replace this ridiculous skull and crossbones. I could spend a lot of time working on this, cleaning it up, but it's really not necessary, as I have found something that will replace it. Go back down here to my web browser, and I have found this one over on Pixabay. And again, there's a link down in the description box of this video. And I have downloaded this image here. The licensing is free for commercial use, no attribution required. So these are royalty-free images. Now, you're free to use any skull and crossbones you'd prefer. If you wanted something like this, fine, use whichever you would like. This is close to the one that is in this image, so that's what I'm going to use. So, I'll come over here, File, Import, Bitmap, go back, and here is this bitmap. And I'm going to select it and scoot it over here, so I can trace it over here. Now, when I imported this, it turned this bitmap layer on, but that's okay. Again, without modification, resizing or rescaling or anything. I'm going to just leave everything else alone, preview it, come over here and take a look, and that's a pretty good tracing. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. I'll click Apply, Close, then once again, turn off the bitmap layer. I need to go ahead and scale this down, and I'm going to go ahead and figure out what size this is. So I'll select it and come over here, and I see the width in X is 2.7146. So I will highlight that number, hold down the Control button, tap the letter C to copy that value into my clipboard. Close it. Come back over here and select all of this. Set selected object size. And I want to highlight my width in X, hold down the Control tab and tap the letter V as in Victor and enter that value right there. Click Apply. And that scales down this skull to the same size as this skull. Close it. Now I can come over here, select all of this, tap the Delete key on my keyboard, select all of this, move it over here, and then we'll do a little bit of fine detail work here. See, I want to kind of rotate it. And move it up into position. That looks a little better. Now that looks okay, except if we look at our pirate here, he's kind of looking off to the side. So that means the skull needs to have a little bit of perspective applied to it. So I'm going to go ahead and distort that selected object. Click on that icon. I'm going to use a bounding box. It says here that selected vectors are valid, so I'll apply. Now I can come in here and using these 4 points, I can distort this skull. So to apply a little bit of perspective, I'll bring this straight down. That may be a little bit much. But I will bring this up from the bottom a little bit. That kind of gives it the appearance of being off to the side a little bit, not looking straight on to the quote-unquote camera. I think that's okay. I can do a little bit more positioning and rotation with that, but I can work with that. I will then bake the distortion in those vectors. If I don't do this, I won't be able to carve it. So we'll go ahead and bake that distortion, close this. Now I can kind of place it a little bit better. Using my cursor left key, I'll bump it over. Maybe rotate it just a little bit more, not much. Move it to the left slightly. And there we go. I'm going to leave it like that. So that corrects that ridiculous skull and crossbones. Okay, now I'm going to select this, and we see we've got a very minor gap here. I want to bring it over slightly, bring it down to keep it in line with this one. And I want to do the same thing over here, just kind of bring him over to the right, then bring him down. So we've got a little bit more of a gap here. All right, let me bump this one more over like that. There we go. Okay. So I've got a skull that I can carve now. And now I need to start working on my main pirate. When I look at this pirate drawing, what I'm seeing is a lot of faceting of vectors that should be round. And what I mean by that is if you look at the iris of his eye here, the iris is angular. It's faceted. And the same thing with the pupil of his eye. It's faceted. Well, we all know that our eyes aren't faceted. Now, I could select this vector, go over here, and fit curves. And I'll take a look at how that would preview. Let me zoom in so you can see it better. Let's start with circular arcs. And I'll preview. And all that has done is that has changed this curved span slightly. It's added a couple of points. And it's smoothed out this span here, but not by very much. So let me go over to Bezier curves, and we'll preview that. And that has removed a few points here and smoothed out this span, but it didn't do anything for the rest of it. So I'm going to just cancel this entire process. We know straight lines is not going to smooth this out. So let's go ahead and cancel that entire process. So with this vector selected, I'll use this to demonstrate. I'm going to tap the letter N to go into node editing. Simply by dragging a box around all of the points, and we see that they all turned red. The red color in node editing indicates the active point. So any modification I do is going to affect all of these points, with a couple of exceptions. I'll show you one of those exceptions right now. If I come over this point right here and right click, I see one of my choices is to smooth the point, and the keyboard shortcut is the letter S. Let's remember that. If I select smooth point, that only affected this point. I still have the faceting out here. By selecting that one point, even though I had all the rest of these selected, it only affected this point. So let me Control Z to undo that. I will again select all of the points on this vector, then tap the letter S for smooth point. And it smoothed all of them simultaneously, giving me a more organic look to this eye. That saves a lot of time, that saves a lot of hassle. Now, you do not have to select all of the points in a vector. There are going to be cases where you want a sharp angle, like in this point right here. I'll select this vector. We want this sharp angle right there. This is a shadow underneath his eye. We want that angle. So I'll just come over here and select these vectors. Then I can also add to that selection, just as if I were selecting more than one open vector. I can hold down Shift and click on these individual points, or still holding down Shift, I can box select those two and get both of them at the same time, then box select each one of these individually. I want to keep going here and select this one and this one, but I want to keep this angle right here, this direction change. But I want to smooth all of these points to eliminate this faceting. So with them selected, tap the letter S, and it smooths right out and looks more organic. But I did not lose my sharp corner here, and I did not lose my sharp corner here. Now I can select, and let's select these 4 here. Whoops, didn't mean to grab that. Control Z. That will happen on occasion if you're not careful. If you see that little tilde show up beneath your arrow pointer, that means you are going to grab that vector. Be careful. So I'll select these, hold down Shift, select that one, and I'll select that one as well. I want to keep this corner, I want to keep this corner, and I want to keep these 3. So tap the letter S, and that smooths that out. That looks more like an eye than those facets did. Now, I know that somebody out there is saying, oh great, why don't you just go ahead and select everything and do them all? Well, let's take a look at it. Now I've selected all the vectors. Now I need to select again to activate all the vectors. And I'll tap the letter S, click off, and we see why we don't want to do that. We have smoothed every point, and now we have vectors overlapping where we don't want them to. Up in here, down there, we have vectors distorted to the point that they make a real mess down here in his sword, and the same thing up here in the skull and crossbones. It's made a mess out of the entire thing. Now, certain patterns may lend itself to doing just this, but this isn't one of them. So let me Control Z to undo what I just did, because again, we have sharp angles here that we want to keep, but we also have facets that we want to eliminate, such as on his chin here. Now I want to keep these angles up in here where they meet and correspond with direction changes. I'm well away from the vector. Group select there and come up here. Group select these 2. Tap the letter S to smooth those vectors. Then I'm going to come up here and tap S to group select those vectors. And we have a much nicer, more organic shape. And I'll do the same thing with the vectors outside here. Group select those. Group select those. Select that one, add it to the list. And come up here, zoom in and select that one as well. Tap the letter S. And I've smoothed that out. So, going around and selecting the points that you want to smooth. I know I've said vectors a few times, and I meant point. But going around the entire image and smoothing before anything else will give a lot better end result, especially when we're talking about more organic shapes like this. And smooth those. I can get rid of this because I don't want it, don't need it. Just tap delete and it's gone. So that's the very beginning. That's the start. I'm going to go around this entire image and selectively smooth points and selectively delete points because not all of them are required. but I'm just looking to make this a more organic shape. Remember that bitmap tracing and node editing are an integral part to creating vectors for VCarving, whether you're going to paint them or do an epoxy inlay. The more you practice, the more you get in and exercise with them, the better your end result is going to be. So, I hope you got something out of this video. And if you did, I do hope you'll give this video a thumbs up. I know there's going to be a lot of questions on this process. So this afternoon at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I'll be hosting a live Q&A session where we can discuss anything that I've demonstrated in this video or any of my other videos. That's this afternoon at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on my YouTube channel. And I've put a link to that live Q&A session down in the description box of this video. Now, these live Q&A sessions are a great reason to go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. And when you hit that red subscribe button, go ahead and click that little bell icon right next to it. Then you'll get a notification the next time I post a video and the next time I go live. So, I hope to see you this afternoon for the live Q&A session. And as always, whether you subscribe to my channel or not, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to watch, and y'all take care.